need a motion to approve minutes from January 14th. Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And this is an opportunity for public communications. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak, this is your time. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is George Gardner, and I'm a taxpayer both in Ferrisburgh and Vergennes. Just a few thoughts that I had. People are taxed out. There's people out of work, and money is tight. And bond issues like you just put in front of us are something that just pushes people over the edge. You got about 7 years left to pay on the bond issue that you got running right now. You really, really should wait until that's paid off before you try to do something else that requires a bond. I understand emergent things like roofs. They fail, they have to be fixed. It's obviously better to replace the roof than it is to just keep patching, because that you end up with damage underneath and the like. And people understand things like the cafeteria. It's old, it's been there since I was a student here. And you don't want to know how long ago that was. But emergent things like that, you come to the taxpayers and ask for what you need to do the emergency thing. Don't keep adding these other things. The auditorium may not be the best thing in the world, but it works. It isn't something that's an emergency. Paving out here certainly is not in that category. And that field, I just can't believe where that came from. That's something that never should have gotten beyond when it landed on the table here. It's something that I just can't even conceive of spending that kind of money for something that, although the publicity said that a lot of people would use it, I really don't think that there would have been that many. There's other things that go on in the town too. The police station really, if any of you have been in there, they really do need a replacement. And that is something that the voters have to consider too. So please, if you come back with another request for a bond, keep it to the real emergencies and essentials. It seems like it was kind of a dream that was out there, and dreams are expensive, and most times you don't end up with them. And the special vote, darn, that cost us all money, and what'd we get out of it? You could have waited and done it at town meeting day. Just, you people are the stewards of our kids, but you're the stewards of our tax money too. And I wish that you would really stop and think about that when you bring something like this to the table. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any other public communications? All right, it's now, we're going to do the Hannaford Career Center budget overview. Are you all set? Okay.
Technology bears with us.
Okay.
For those that don't know me, my name is Mark Bouvier. I'm the business manager at the Patricia A. Hannaford Regional Technical School District. Our director was not able to be here tonight. Our assistant director, Wendy Meunier, is here, and she'll be touching upon some of the statistics as far as enrollment. And my job is to, one, be brief, and those that know me will understand that's probably going to be a struggle, but I will try to do that. So our budget this year is up 2.8%. And I apologize to the board's member that this is to your back. We're up about $95,600 over the current year budget. And To give you a comparison in terms of the original budget, I did want to touch upon one aspect of the current year budget where we made a change. Our sixth semester average, there was a slight change in that variance from what we submitted before the voters last year at this time for the 2012-13 budget and what it ended up actual. However, the crux of what I wanted to point out here is really deals with the state education base amount. We have used last year at this time in the current budget an estimate of $8,544. That was the fourth year in a row that we were using that same number because we were just a little concerned that the legislature was not going to address and bump that up. As it had the previous 3 years, it had been at $8,544. Fortunately, it moved up to $8,723. We presented to the board in September before the assessments went out and said, how would you like us to handle this? Our recommendation was that we recalculate the assessments that go back to our sending towns, and the board said, yes, let's do that. So the original assessment, you can see there in the second column, marked original budget proposal. The next to the last one at the bottom was $1,446,892. We actually ended up assessing out to our sending districts $1,411,805. That was a reduction of $35,087, or roughly $193 on the tuition rate. The $35,000 came to us in additional state education base amount and the tuition assessment grant. That's a little bit about the current budget. What's our average been? When we've stepped to the plate over the last 5 years, our average increase has been under 2%. This year, as you did, we struggled with the health insurance. We've been using 10% in the past, and we're fortunate that we were able to pull that back later in our budget process. This year, we used 10% and then got the word, you better push that up to 14. And the 14 is what's in the budget, because we had to go to bed with it and get it approved. So that's what's currently in this budget. In terms of percentages, fortunately, we're still in year two, or excuse me, this will be the last year, the 2013-14, of our master agreement, both with support staff and our faculty. And those increases average across the board 2.7. For non-unionized members, which include administrators, support staff that are not part of any bargaining unit, that average increase is 2%. And as I noted earlier, health insurance comes in at 14. Overall, in our academic operational budgets, we've reduced those almost 5%, about $7,500. The general instructional equipment, we have a line in there that the director controls for people that have a difficult time with some equipment needs. He can kind of see to it how he wants to dole that out. Last year, we had $3,000, but the budget was so tight that we didn't even spend that. So that's basically increased from a spending of 0 to a line item of $5,000. Overall, all operational budgets, this includes maintenance, the business office, the director's office, increased about 1.25%. So how do we pay for it? And this is a different concept that our sending schools deal with. The first thing we do is take our budget that's being proposed, of $3,515,000 and change. We back out our local revenues, and we back out any state and federal grants. For example, like you, we get assistance for transporting our students to our outside classrooms that might be a forestry area in the county or to a building site. We do get reimbursement for that. And we also get a Perkins grant. So we back out that amount of $281,000 to bring us to $3,196,947. We then have to average 6 semesters worth of students. We can't just say, this is how many kids we expect this next year and divide our assessment by that. We have to look at that number over a period of 6 semesters or 3 years. Just to give you a snapshot, these are our 3 main sending schools that are part of our voting district, and then all other schools. What our fall enrollment was this past year in 2012, the highest in our 6 semester average, and I want to point out that these do not necessarily occur in the same semester for each of the schools. So Middlebury, for example, in the 6 semester average period we're looking at, had a high of 72.65. Their lowest in that same 6-semester period was 58.33 for an overall average over the 6 semesters of 67.993. You can pick out your respective school in Vergennes and see what the high and the low was and the average. And I apologize, but that ended up being about 150, that yellow, 156.33 is our 6-semester average for this next year. So we take that 6-semester average. We receive 87% of the block grant. And we were using $8,941, so that turns out to be $7,779. And that amount, $528,000, I'm looking at the top row here from Middlebury, $528,918 is what comes to us. And the 13%, or in the Middlebury's case, $79,008, goes directly to the district. And that's our share of the block grant. So we go back to our budget, we back out local and other state and federal revenue, and then we back out that figure of our 6-semester average of 156.33 times that base education rate at 87% or 7,779 tells us that we're going to receive about $1,216,000. That leaves us with $1,980,908 to go. And after that, we then receive 35% in what's known as the Vermont Tuition Reduction Assessment Grant. So we take that same state education base rate of $8,941 times 35%, gives us a factor of 3,129, times our 6-semester average, brings in another $489,200 into our coffers, leaving us with a balance of $1,491,696. And this is what gets assessed out to our member districts. This just shows the comparison, what the tuition rate is slated to be next year, which is $9,542. And then you notice that we split. The $9,017 is what we went to the voters with a year ago at this time. So on that comparison, we're up $526, or a percentage of 5.83. The $8,812 is what we actually assessed our member districts, our sending districts, and that puts us up a difference of $730, or 8.29%. So even with a budget increase of 2.8, our assessment is obviously up considerably more than that, and because our 6-semester average is dropping. We have the capacity, we just don't have the kids. That's a summary. So here's the last 5 years, and I apologize, this is one slide. When you look at these on a computer screen, yellow looks okay. You get here, yellow doesn't look okay. So let's just take the last row, 2013-14. There's our budget. There's the total of our local and grant revenue, our state education base rate, the tuition reduction, leaving us with the local assessment of $1,491,000. This is just pointing out where the 6-semester averages have been. We hit a high last year of 160. That's the one that's in the yellow that you cannot see. And again, I apologize for that. And you can see the trend now is dropping a little bit. So how did we compare? Here's a little bit better clarity. With the 6-semester average, as I said, this current year that we're in, that we assess folks on, was the highest we've seen in the last 6 years. And the percentages, the change that occurs between one year and the next. So we're down about 2.6%. The assessment, that's where we've had a reduction in the 2010 to 11 and 2011-12. Last year's, I can read those for you if I get up a little closer. We went up based on budget to budget 3.07, and when we actually assessed it out, the percentage went up only 0.71%, so less than 1%. That's it for my portion. I certainly will try to answer questions, and that's our director, by the way, who's not here. And just a little side note, that yellow car, you probably saw the article in the Addy Indy on it that was worked on by some of our students in our auto program. And that's used at Porter Hospital to help people facilitate getting in and out of cars that have wheelchairs and so forth. So it sits in the lobby, has no engine, no transmission or anything, but Just thought I'd throw that in for good measure. Questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Mark?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you go back a few slides to the sixth semester?
Challenging my, what was my
I was
text?
just curious
I'll go
why,
back in PowerPoint.
why you had such an increase when you went from 147 to 156?
There you
Here.
go. See, I knew if you
So
call on a
between-
student, they know how to do it.
Between 10, 11, and 11, 12, do you know what accounts for the increase in the sixth semester average? Is there new programs or?
One of the programs that really began to pick up speed during that time was visual communications. That was a halftime teacher in the 10-11 and then increased, and that has full enrollment. The other program that saw some significant increases was the health careers and now known as the medical professions.
Okay. Right.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions? Yes.
Do you have an intuition of how this will play out in terms of the by-town tax rates? Have you done that, Matt?
No, because our assessment goes back to the local schools, and that's not a number that we track at all. But it's a good question, but that, I will send that bill to Kathy, and she, in fact, probably in late November, early December, sent her those numbers and said, this is what you need to plug into your budget.
So my numbers included Mark's number, Hannaford's numbers,
Yeah.
preliminary.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wendy?
And I'm Wendy Minyar, I'm the Assistant Director, and I did hand out a couple of different things. We've got our, got the actual course booklet there, and then we've got this little sheet right here that really talks about the sixth semester average by school, as you can see. And then you've got the enrollment trends for your school, and somebody said, well, they're going to ask you why that fall 2010 went up. And in the past, that was only 2 periods a day, and this year we did 3 periods a day. So that's the difference there. As you can see, our most popular programs, agriculture, engineering, and diesel, and the least popular are architecture and engineering systems, renewable energy, green building, forestry, natural resources, and the CNC program. So I'm a little confused as to why they have engineering in both the most and the least, but I didn't write this, so I can find that out if anybody would like to know. So our new and revised programs, you'll see on the yellow sheet, are STEM programs. That's a different concept that we're using this year, where students that are really just interested in exploring science, technology, engineering, and math come in and rotate between 3 different teachers. So they're in a construction program, they're in a CAD program, and they're in the machining program. And they use the design process, starting with the computer and then getting into building something of their choice. And so we're really trying to encourage kids to look at science, technology, engineering, and math. And we've also revised our sustainable agriculture program. The last couple of years we've raised chickens. This spring we'll be raising some pigs. And we've got some grants and things that we're going to be using on the North Campus, where we actually have some acreage so that students have hands-on animal access. And then in our post-secondary, that's Lynn's baby. But I'm going to talk about it just a little bit. He has, you may have heard, he's got quite the buzz going around the state on his skilled butchers and meat cutters academy. Our first cohort has already gone through a large portion of it, and we're going to be starting a second cohort very soon. They receive different types of certificates as they go through the parts and pieces. So for example, in just slaughtering chickens, they will receive a certification on just chickens. They also get things on knife skills, serve safe, a number of different kinds of certificates to build up to what eventually ends up being skilled butchers and meat cutters. The Transportation Careers Academy, that's a new one that's just started. And Lynn has a grant from, it's in partnership with UVM and the state transportation. I can't think of the exact name there. But what happens there is that we have kids that are in our programs now that are receiving things like OSHA 10 certifications, project management and things like that. So some of the kids in our forestry program can go into this transportation academy and already be halfway there. Once they get some of these certificates, such as work readiness and OSHA 10 and flagging and things like that, once they get some of those, they're automatically at the top of the list for transportation jobs this summer as we start to work on rebuilding our roads. And the Health Careers Academy will be coming again in next year. So that we're building off what we have in the high school level to adults that want to better themselves in health careers. And then on the last page, you'll see the 6 semester averages played out. And so you can see at Vergennes, you'll see how many students were there for each of those semesters of the 6 semesters. You'll see the total divided by 6 for your 6 semester average of 96.83. And I'll be happy to answer any questions too.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions?
I do.
Okay.
And I probably shouldn't because I spend more time with you guys than anybody else. But if they do get first aid, CPR, OSHA 10, all the different certificates, sounds like that would be valuable to the workplace, so that they wouldn't have to do that after they're hired. So,
Right, so what the idea is, if you're looking at the Transportation Academy here,
yeah.
the idea is that they've already gone through the informational meeting, and their students need to still take this intro to transportation, but this workplace safety stuff, this is stuff that they can get while they're in high school.
Right.
So that when they want to go this summer and apply for a job with the transportation, whether it's as a flagger or helping to build a bridge or something like that, they will already have some of these things. So they would only need to come up with the work readiness certificate and the project. Some of our kids actually already have the project planning because they've designed and built roads on our North Campus for the farm. So some of them already have that. And also, if they get a job working over the summer, the apprenticeship hours actually apply towards the total certificate piece. Okay, so then the final pieces there are getting the work readiness certificate, which we will pay for through CCB, and then they do the intro to transportation, and then afterwards, the last thing they would do would be the CDL to get the full certificate. Okay, so these are what we call stackable certificates. You get a certain amount of credentialing, if you will, with some of the certificates. If you go through the whole program, you're pretty likely to get a good job in the transportation sector.
Do you know if the jobs that they're getting are non-union or union jobs?
That I don't know.
Okay. Because state employees.
My understanding is that the jobs would pay somewhere between $12 and $18 an hour, and that's entry level.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll talk to you later this week. If you can look up, I'd be interested.
I'll check on the union piece of it.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.
Debate team.
Hello, we are the Vergennes debate team, and as the team supporting the resolved, funding the debate team will academically benefit Vergennes students, we assert 3 premises. First, debate teaches students how to logically construct arguments using inductive and deductive reasoning, and teaches how to support arguments with evidence. In constructing an argument, one must look at the facts and statistics to deductively arrive at conclusions. One must also examine political philosophies that correspond with the issue and draw inductive conclusions from it. For example, in our most recent debate topic, that the rise of China will benefit the interests of the United States, we looked at the displacement of American jobs and the amount of pollution produced by China to deduce our con argument, while we applied the political philosophy of egalitarianism to support tax increases over spending cuts in the debate prior. Through debate team, one also learns how to back up everything that they say with reliable sources. And a cross-examination, I think, I feel, or I believe, do not count as valid justifications for your argument. When your opponents can and will ask you to source every claim that you make, it instills the importance of reliable data and shows the necessity of evidence-based opinions. These skills go beyond the debate team and help students to form intelligent and rational worldviews.
My second premise is that the debate team teaches students how to construct both pro and con arguments and argue each equally as persuasively. As a member of the debate team, it's important to be prepared for any situation you're given. Part of that involves considering both the pro and con of our given topic. Coming up with sufficient evidence for something you don't believe in can be incredibly difficult, but in this case it's necessary, which has also given me a sense of understanding for both sides of an argument. Our most recent topic was the rise of China is beneficial to the interests of the United States. Most people would find it easier to argue against that statement, as there are not very many non-biased opinions saying that China is beneficial. After scrubbing the internet and other sources for all the information we could, we came up with a strong list of 3 premises that went against the common perception of China. We also managed to organize 4 premises stating that China was detrimental to the U.S. These premises were so good, in fact, that they convinced a non-biased spectator of both sides of the coin. As I said before, debate has given me an understanding for both sides of a situation. While I may not agree on a personal level with everything my opponent says, I know that their facts are mostly accurate and I can understand from where their argument comes from. I have experienced arguments outside of debate that quickly devolved into shouting matches, but knowing that what the other person is saying must hold some truth has made these situations far less violent.
Premise 3 is that the debate team helps with public speaking and confidence. As you know, public speaking is a part of everyday life for many people. It is needed in such things as college, jobs, and community involvement. With debate, you get a lot of practice because you have to work on 6-minute speeches, well, 4-minute and 2 minutes. 6 minutes in total for each debate, which there are 3 in one event, and we have many events through the states. So we work a lot on public speaking. I'm not very good at it. Working on it. But it does help to get practice in front of others, like I'm doing now, in order to boost confidence and self-esteem, which eventually could help a student's personal or academic performance in school itself.
Okay. I am on the forensic side of the forensic and debate team. Many people associate the word forensics with science. However, while sometimes used in that context, the definition of forensics is the art or study of argumentation and formal debate. In forensics, there are many different categories that you can compete in, such as radio announcing, prose, poetry, or even original oratory. I personally compete in dramatic interpretation. In dramatic interpretation, we are expected to act out a 4 to 6 minute piece that has been fully memorized and often contains more than one character. We are expected to perform this piece 3 times, once in each round, for 3 different judges. I believe that forensics helps with self-expression. It can help a person better develop their skills for public speaking, and it helps not only a person think outside the box in terms of creativity, but it also helps to see things from a different person's point of view. I also believe that participating in forensics can help boost a person's confidence and can help them become more comfortable and confident in themselves. Forensics is not only about personal development or developing a piece, it is also a tool to help you become a more well-rounded person that any college will be happy to accept.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, Superintendent O'Brien, Principals Webley and Reynolds, and guests. I'd like to address you today on the matter of supporting a new academic team that is organized this year at BUHS. Our version of the speech and debate team, the Vergennes Oratorical Guild, consists of several students that have spoken to you already. They've described their activities and some of what they learned and experienced. They wanted a chance to explain why they have become devoted to the idea that this community deserves an active and vibrant speech and debate program. I would like to take a moment to enumerate some of the successes these members of your community have achieved in this short season and submit a plea of continued support for our activity. Our first outing as a debate group was to attend a scrimmage at the beginning of the year to observe what happened at an official event. I took a group of 3 students, along with Mr. Chris Wyckoff, to observe a real debate. While we were talking to the event coordinator, he offered us an opportunity to participate in the second round of debates, handing me a packet of resource material and saying, well, no one keeps score for this anyway. He left me to decide if we would give it a try. Walking back to the team, I decided to throw them into the fire and see what emerged. In a pattern that would be repeated time after time in the coming season, Casey and Joanna panicked for about 3 seconds. and then dove into the material. After observing one round to see how it was done, they squared off against another debate team, having less than an hour of preparation time, while the other teams had seen the material weeks before. With the event coordinator looking on, they proceeded to trounce the other team. These men and women, time and again, have challenged themselves in the best spirit of the 5 guidelines here at VUHS. In our first Model UN competition, Casey was named Outstanding Delegate. In her first season ever, Joanna selected, studied, memorized, practiced, and performed a dramatic interpretation piece that has qualified her at the state competition that should have taken place this last Saturday. Watch the parent newsletter to see those results. With one debate left in the season, Casey and Simon are on track to qualify as a team in the state debate competition. Sarah, our freshman, is anticipated to do great things. In our first year, I think you will agree that we've had a banner one. To say that we've accomplished this alone would be unfair, though. The curricular offerings of the Social Studies and English department have laid the foundation of our success. The efforts at Walden, the musical and theatrical programs, and ART are to name but a few of the programs that this board has supported over the years to build such strong traditions of oratorical and rhetorical excellence. Today, I humbly submit that you have the opportunity to continue these traditions and take them to the next level by supporting my work in building this team. Although we don't need uniforms or have equipment or facilities requirements, we are like other teams in that we need to be able to get to our events. Although they have happily paid dues and entry fees and found other funding for those expenses, we would request the removal of that small financial barrier to student participation. Please invest in this worthwhile program. I know that these students and the 7 new recruits eager to begin work next year will do their best to prove themselves worthy of your trust. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your support.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Good job.
That sounded great to me.
Yeah.
Is it a lot of money to support these kids?
No. We've kind of carved it out of a few sources, and Peter's helped, and, you know, it's not very expensive. And the bang for the buck is extraordinary, so. I mean, I'd say the travel expenses would be under $700 for a year. And if we did entry fees and transportation, probably be under $1,000 still. So, and it's a VPA sponsored activity. So. It's good stuff. And the kids went to Steve. He didn't go to them, by the way. The students approached him to ask if he would support them. So it's kind of cool.
So how do we handle that, knowing that we're going into budget
Why
season?
don't you do a pilot for next year?
Pilot?
And you have some information to form another decision this time next year, or beginning of the year.
Or budget time? But we don't really need a vote on that, do we?
I think you could vote to run a pilot.
Okay.
Only insofar as, you know, our budget doesn't necessarily have a line for it inside of sports or inside of academics, so we're kind of agreeing that we're gonna juggle things around.
Right.
Or let them juggle things around to find that money. So.
But we don't have every individual sport listed separately.
Right.
So we could absorb it within our coaches line item and our travel line item.
So I need a motion
Well,
to,
can I ask a question based on that? Who's responsible for that overall budget?
Is it over there?
Is it Peter?
For coaches and extracurricular.
Well, yeah,
I mean, you have a
activities.
line item in terms of how much you pay coaches, so my just initial thought, you're either gonna run it over, or I don't hire one of my coaches to make up for this money that you wanna spend, I don't, you know.
but that's why you look at it as a pilot for next year.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come out of that until you discuss the budget for next year.
I think I'm right in ballparking under 1,000 for total costs, except, and I didn't mention that I think it's only fair that Steve would be stipended as an advisor, which is not an extensive amount of money either, but, so.
So we've already got a budget out there for next year. That's why I said pilot, and try
Right.
to work it in parameters of what we have right now.
The parent group also gave some money to the group as well.
Oh, yeah?
Part of their grants enrichment program.
Great.
They needed an application fee, money, in order to go.
So that's a possibility for next year, maybe,
Yeah, we
you know.
will have those enrichment grants again next year, so. Since we're talking about this, we also gave an enrichment grant to the middle school too.
Mhm.
We gave money towards project graduation and gave money to the composting park. It was in the news last week.
So is there a motion to, I need a motion to accept this as a pilot program for next year? Does anyone want to make that motion?
I guess
Or you wanna
I'm
wait?
trying to understand what the status of pilot program does. Does it mean we support it in kind and let the finances fall where they go, or?
It means
Okay.
there won't be financial support
Yeah.
from us for next year because there's a
We
budget that's
have a
already
budget, yeah.
out there. But if they did it this year, there may be other funds, I mean, maybe even boosters, I mean, there could be other ways to fund it for next year. And then the hope is that you would be able to add it for the following year.
I think it's also to gauge interest, because it is a new activity.
I think I heard 7 kids waiting in the wing for next year, right? That's what you said? Additional beyond, well, a couple of these are
Many of
graduating.
them are seniors, but
Right.
we have 7 students that have attended other debates, and some that are coming up this Friday that want to come and observe. Very interested students.
It sounds very academically
Yeah.
oriented to me.
Exactly.
And, you know, that's a good thing.
Right.
So I guess I would move that they be recognized as a pilot program in the next year without any formal financial support, with the hope that they would put together a budget for next year.
Okay, and I need a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Any board communications?
Not sure that helped.
What's that?
Recognition.
Yeah.
No board communication? Okay, student,
All
ahead.
right.
Casey?
So going on this week, the student council has planned a food drive, and as sort of the incentive for the morning meeting, who brings in the most items, the prize is going to be tickets to a playoff game in Barrie. Probably for the boys basketball team. And then also this week, the National Honor Society is visiting the underclassmen morning meetings just to talk about what NHS does, and the requirements for membership and how to apply. So hopefully we can get some more applications in the next coming years and get more qualified applicants. Also, tomorrow there's a math meet in Milton, and the boys are playing here against Milton.
On Thursday, the VUHS Music Department is putting on its annual Black and White Cabaret. That's at 6:30. And the baseball team is hosting a bottle drive this coming Saturday at 8:30. And the boys basketball team is currently undefeated, as I'm sure most of you are aware, 16-0. And like Casey mentioned, they play Milton tomorrow night. So they're having a great season on the road to Barrie.
Oh, that's awesome. Great. Thank you very much. And now we move to this side of the table?
Can I ask one more
Oh, sure, I'm
question
sorry.
before you
Yes,
move on?
yes. Absolutely.
How did the first senior privileges go?
It went really well. I mean, there was
No one arrested?
Yeah, no. No one was arrested, no car accidents that I'm aware of. People have to walk, so I don't think anyone got hit by any cars.
No one's still missing?
No complaints.
No.
No complaints. Excellent.
Great.
That's good to hear.
Keep up the good work.
What would you say the participation was?
Well, I actually, to be honest, I wasn't here
Okay.
on Friday. So I
None of us was.
Yeah.
got surgery, so I wasn't actually, but I think,
The first day was pretty cold, so not a lot of people ventured out. And the second time, I think we had,
4 or 5.
yeah, not many, really.
I think that it'll be something that once it warms up,
Right.
and the thought of graduating is closer, we'll be out more.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
What time is the game, the boys' game?
JV is at 5.
Varsity is at
7.
7. Are they here or there?
They're here.
Okay.
Okay. Ed?
Want to go? Let me go.
We can start.
Okay. Hi, everybody. One thing we'd like to go over is a piece of work that Peter Manine did, and we released the High Honors and Honor Roll just yesterday, I believe, and Peter went through and highlighted the numbers of both athletes and musicians that made honors and high honors. We can pass that around there. But his findings, it's very interesting that in 12th grade, the percentage of the class on honors is 25%. The percentage of class who are on honors who participated in extracurriculars, 70%.
Actually, it's the percentage of the 25.
Percentage of the 25, 70% of the 25. Then 10% of high class honors in the senior class, and then 92% of those were extracurricular, either in music or athletics. And as you can see, reading from left to right, it's consistently high percentage of athletes and musicians who have made honors or high honors, and to the point where in the 7th grade, 100% of high honors are participating in extracurriculars. So, when we talk about supporting activities in the arts and in athletics for our children in this town, you can see the impact that activities have. And I'm not speaking just because Peter did a nice job of parsing these numbers, but it comes from 33 years of being associated with high school activities, and having been a coach and having seen this kind of numbers consistently, no matter what high school you're at. If you have a successful activities program and interscholastic athletic program and music program, this is what happens across the board. And when it's a well-articulated, well-thought-out program, the results are absolutely outstanding, and they're supported by research. So thank you, Peter. That was a really good job. Appreciate that.
Quick question on
Yeah,
that?
sure.
Any intuition as to the flip side? For the proportion of kids not making honors, is the proportion of kids participating in extracurriculars significantly lower?
What would you think, Pete?
My guess is yes.
My
but
guess is
the
yes,
data
but it's a
isn't shown,
guess.
so.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch all
The data are really clear that the kids who are on high honors or honors are disproportionately participating in extracurricular activities. But the data aren't shown that the kids who are not on honors are not participating in extracurricular activities. See what I'm saying? I mean, there could be 70% of kids who are, just regular kids who aren't on honors that are still participating in the extracurriculars. I'm just kind of taking a page from the debate team.
So what would your premise be?
No, I don't go there. I'm just curious. I mean, it's good. The math is good, and it's really compelling, especially in the lower grades. So, is it a real story?
To be honest, I didn't really get into it that far. It was a matter of, they just came out today.
Yeah.
I went through, I stick them on my door, to recognize the kids for their academic success as well. And just threw a couple things, together in there, so it'd have to be something that I go through and, look, I wouldn't know off the top of my head. So I wouldn't want to tell you the wrong thing.
No, and it's okay. It's just, I think it's a fair question, but.
Well, half of our kids, just over half of our kids participate in athletics, is that correct?
74%, I think, between athletics and music.
All right, so this, this list is addressing a significant portion of the student population.
I don't mean to make angels dance on the head of a pin. It's just-
No.
It's great analysis, so.
Yeah, it's just a way of recognizing the very strong link between activities and success. Kids learn an awful lot through activities. Also, even though it's not officially, it's sort of always been a shadow part of our curriculum, I guess. I got some other good news. In the Voice of Democracy contest sponsored by the VFW, we had 17 participants. We had local and regional winner. We placed 5th in the state. Lions Club Speak Out contest, we had 2 participants. Local winner Stephanie Anderson is going on to the next level. Rotary International Speech Contest, we had 8 participants. Local winner Ariana Dupre. DAR Columbus Essay Contest, local winner now at States for Consideration, Stephanie Anderson. American Legion Oratorical, 2 local competitors. Local winner is Leonardo Orsini. Divisionals this weekend. And we had a young man, Liam Godfrey Hayes, who was one of the 24 finalists out of 300 students entered in the State of the Nation essay contest that was sponsored by Senator Sanders. So we do have some other good academic news along with that. And I gave you all the good news before I got to the kneecap results. Oh, well, that's not what they said. She said Hayes. So I will pass these out, but first I want to go through this. We just, the kneecap scores were just released from our embargo. Peter's got the 8th grade, I've got the 11th grade. This is dealing with the 2012 testing cycle. All right, earlier in the day, one of our math teachers took the last year's results to challenge me, and we were just looking at 2 sets of data, that's all. And I didn't really disaggregate these too much because I haven't had a lot of time, but in general, in the spring testing for science, which is last spring, we had a greater percentage of students succeed than the state average. Now remember, this is a little pokey because we are part of the state average too, but as far as the state average goes, we perform better. We had 36% success rate versus 33% at the state level. We had 3% of our kids at level 4, which is the highest level, and 33% of our kids at level 3, which is still proficient.
Want to hand these out so they can look
Sure. We had a good number of students approaching success. Almost 50% of the students were within barking distance of proficiency, as opposed to 42% of the state being nearly proficient. And we had fewer level 1s, which is not good. We had 15%, and the state average is 25%. The thing I want to warn against is that we shouldn't feel good just because we're doing better than the state average, because the state average is still 33% of the kids were successful in their kneecap science testing. Not as good as we'd want. In math, we matched the state average exactly. 3% on level 4, 35% on level 3. We were 1% better than the state average in level 2s, and we were 1% better at the level 1 because we had 1% less. So, Nancy, that sound right? Okay, all right. Okay. In reading, we had a lesser percentage of success than the state average. We were 69% successful at VUHS, 74% success at the state. There's no significant differences between Vergennes Junior High School and the state averages in level 1, 2, and 1. It was pretty much gender balanced. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even talk about that. Science is gender balanced. As many girls succeed as boys. Math is almost gender balanced because all 6 of the 4 scores were male. So all our high scorers in that class were male. Reading is almost twice as many females reached level 4 than males. All the other levels were gender balanced. Writing, we had a lesser percentage of success than the state average. We had 39% success at VUHS and 47% success at the state average. I'm calling success a merging of level 3 and 4. We had a strong number of students approaching success, 48%, and we had almost the same percentage of level 1s. That's a dumb sentence by me because I should have said as the state. Here's the weird part. Females outperform males almost 2 to 1 across the board. And if I may believe this test only, 1/4 of our males only can write. I don't believe that's true, but that's how it tested out, and that's not a good sign.
That was actually a significant difference between 8th grade and 11th grade, where it was 90% females and 77% of our males who performed at the proficient or better level.
So one of the things that we get hammered on for is socioeconomic success, and SES status means socioeconomic status, which means free and reduced lunch. In science, it appears like we're closing the gap. I have to go back to making this meaningful. I have to do historical data, just 1-year data won't make much. So, you know, we had 3% of SES students make level 4, 1 person. 3% of regular students made level 4, 2 persons. So, I mean, you know, that's not statistically meaningful, but on the other hand, it's interesting. 26% of SES students made level 3, 9 persons, and 36% of regular students made level 3, 26 persons. We do appear to be closing some gaps. In math, 0% of SES students made level 4, 3% of regular students made level 4, that's 5 persons. 20% of SES students made level 3, 9 persons, 42% of regular students made level 3, 25 persons. And the rest, not as well balanced as you'd think, because when you look down at level 1, which is not good, 57% of SES students made level 1 as opposed to 27% of regular students. The thing to remember across the board is that in general, we match the state average, and we've been doing better every single year in mathematical testing. Then reading, SES, reading should have less of an impact, but because of early childhood education, early efforts in reading instruction, like reading recovery in the old days, or you know the things we do today. 53% of SES students made level, or 10% of SES students made level 4, which is 3 people. 20% of regular students made level 4, which is 15. 53% of SES students made level 3, 16 people. 47% of regular students made level 3, 27 people. It's the narrowest difference between SES and regular students of any area is in reading. That's usually not the case. The pattern in the state has been that science has the lowest differential between SES status and regular status because kids don't normally do, for instance, electromagnetism around the dining room table when they're 6 years old. You know, they all have sort of an equitable start. In writing, 0% of SES students made level 4, 2% of regular students made level 4, that's 5 persons. 37% of SES students made level 3, and 37% of regular students made level 3, and it's 11 versus 37 persons. And so our conclusions are that we have decent equity in writing at levels 3 and 2, maybe if we make the argument at 4. However, the bad news is we don't want anywhere near 51% of any population moored at level 2. So that's we still continue to improve on the NECAS, but The kneecaps are an imprecise measurement, and they're just measuring one thing. Do you want to continue with your scores, and I can come back to my
Sure.
hand if what I'm going to say?
Sure. I actually have, we'll have these scores available. I put the middle school scores on the same document as Ed's, but I ran into a problem printing. So I'll have that for you. And a lot of similarities. You have to bear in mind when we get these results that statistically they're not very meaningful, because if we compare one cohort to the next, it's two different sets of kids. It's much more useful at least to compare us to the state, or to compare this cohort over time. And in this building, we have been testing them only twice on work that they accomplish here. So this 8th grade class and this 11th grade class are now 9th graders and 12th graders. That's the class that we're assessing. The significant issues that are somewhat different from the senior class, the SES is, well, it's not a difference. We're not doing a good job, and a good enough job with our poor kids. Is probably the simplest way to extract some information from this. That's one reason that we've been in a problem on our kneecap or on AYP, and we continue to work at that. It is something we haven't made the kind of progress that we need to make. But you'll be able to, this is not the kind of data that you can process in a meeting. So I'll see that you get the numbers and can make your own conclusion. Perhaps we could set aside some time at a subsequent meeting or via email to deal with questions that you have, so we can be ready to answer those. Again, we got this data at the end of last week, so other than looking at numbers and writing them down, we really haven't drawn many conclusions.
Were the kids that were tested in 11 also tested on the kneecap in 8? Not for science, I don't think.
Not for science.
Yes.
Yes for science.
Yes for science?
Yes,
Yeah.
we tested 8th and 11th statewide. 5, 8, and 11, I think, is science.
So it does give you the opportunity to at least look at that cohort,
Yes.
understanding that cohort's probably had some migration in and out.
Not
Sure.
much, but some.
Sure. But again, if we compare both of those to the state, it will tell us what kind of...
Statewide 11th grade testing falls off from 8th grade testing significantly.
Does it? I
Across
see.
the board.
Yeah.
And
We don't require science every year.
I have my,
We have science all the way through up till 8th grade. So it's similar to math. Kids may take the math kneecap when they haven't had math for,
Right.
6 months.
Right.
So.
I've got one more part, and this is because the board is going to be involved, I think. It appears that way. We're changing the language again. I'm on the, working on the Educational Quality Standards Commission, and there's about 20 of us, 2 superintendents, 2 principals, 2 teachers, 2 elementary school teachers, college professors, et cetera. And we're radically changing these, and these are going to go in front of first the State Board of Education, and then to the legislature for approval. Either one of those bodies could shoot this down, so I'm not saying this is set in stone, but I just wanted a couple things, couple wording changes that are dramatic. One is graduation requirements, and this is a draft, or otherwise it's a working document, so I don't feel justified in handing it out, but if any of you want to read it, I'd be glad to give it to you personally. Under the graduation requirements policy, each supervisory union or supervisory district board is responsible for setting graduation requirements in accordance with the State Board of Education policy. Local graduation policy must define proficiency-based graduation requirements based on standards adopted by the State Board. Additionally, it is the responsibility of all boards to assure alignment and expectations for all students within the district. So that means the ANWSU district would be responsible for aligning pre-K through 12 instruction and in order to achieve the graduation requirements. It's also moved to proficiency-based. We've in this document, we have completely done away with Carnegie units. Not that if we wanted Carnegie units, we could keep them. That means that you measure academic progress by the number of hours you sit in a seat. I thought you knew. It also calls for multiple pathways to graduation, including but not limited to career and technical education, virtual learning, internships, service learning, dual enrollment, and early college. Students must be allowed to demonstrate proficiency by presenting multiple types of evidence, including but not limited to teacher or student designed assessments, portfolios, performances, exhibitions, and projects. And you can see where that's aligning with the PBGRs, the performance-based graduation requirements. We do give some requirements. They take away the 20 courses that the state requires, and instead the strong language is the student demonstrates evidence of a progression through rigorous and comprehensive interdisciplinary experiences, integrating reading and writing components across all areas of the curriculum each year of the student's secondary schooling in communication, mathematical reasoning, scientific inquiry, global citizenship and cultural proficiency, and transferable skills. So the high school program can no longer have feature a year where a kid didn't have math, for instance. Now, he can have math as long as it's integrated in a STEM program, but he or she couldn't just scotch, for instance, senior year, the cruise year, those kids who decide to cruise can't, because they've got to have 4 years of contiguous experience in all these areas now. So it doesn't tell you that you have to offer courses for 4 years. It says you have to have academic experiences in all 4 years. So, and because they're emphasizing interdisciplinary courses, that means that things like humanities, STEM, things of that nature will be taking the place of traditional siloed departmental offerings like, Brit Lit. Instead, it might be a cultural investigation of English hegemony. Sorry, I can't say that tonight. So it's just some interesting things, and it comes back to say the student demonstrates completion of any other requirements specified by the local board of the school attended by the students. So you folks would still have control over things like, financial literacy, things that you thought were extremely important to these children. Language, which is, by the way, language is under global citizenship and cultural proficiency. And then finally, one of the last interesting big part, except for the alternative credit accrual plan, is what we know as a multi-year plan now, is that this working draft calls for personalized learning plans beginning in grade 7 and going through grade 12. And it reads, all students entering 7th grade shall have a personalized learning plan, which shall be a written document developed by the student, a representative of the school, and if the student is a minor, the student's parent or legal guardian. And there's also going to be a PLP for grades pre-K through 6 in another location of the proposal, which wouldn't have to do necessarily with graduation requirements. And the reason I'm telling you guys this is because the board at the high school level and the ANWSU level are going to be more narrowly accountable for graduation than they had been in the past, is the plan. And if there's anything in here that you guys are uncomfortable with, one of my tasks would be to go and relay that information. So if anybody wants me to email this to you or otherwise transmit it to you, I'd be glad to do that. So.
What do you mean by more narrowly accountable?
Well, it's not, for just the language that each supervisory union or supervisory union district is responsible for setting graduation requirements in according with state board policy is a change in language that puts more onus on, what we're trying to do is take it away from, believe it or not, we're trying to take it away from principals and making sure there's a public control of local, continue the local control of graduation standards. Instead of saying just state board calls it or the legislature calls it a principal, it's a principal decision to graduate. We're trying to remind our boards that really that's your game. That's your bailiwick. And not that we want you to micromanage graduation. Don't get me wrong. But it's a switch, and by killing the Carnegie units, it's a rather big switch. But it allows flexibility. If you wanted to maintain Carnegie units, you could, as long as they supported the rest of the stuff. So,
Thank you.
cool stuff.
Peter?
You done?
Yeah.
I'd like to start off by introducing another eighth grader who's now working with RTN. This is Lauren Scott, who has stepped up to be one of the trained students and will be assuming more responsibility over the next few years, I think, as we see that. So it's nice to have her here. The work that we've been doing in middle school is focused on how do we get kids, among other things, how do we get this disparate group of kids ready to be successful when they get into high school. We have some latitudes that high school doesn't have in terms of kids being the way the state measures high school success. There's little latitude in how much time you have to go through high school, at least until this process is completed. So we were looking at extended time in middle school, looking at middle school from beginning at the end of 6th grade, looking at the 3 summers and the 2 school years, as well as after school. We also have, as a result of having conversations over the last few years about exit criteria, how can you demonstrate that you're ready to move into high school? We're following in the heels of the PBGR work, and this 8th grade class is currently in the process of developing individual capstone projects, which will reflect some of the practices that we know kids are going to need to be successful in high school. It's a research-based project with a real product for an authentic audience at the end. It's not that we haven't done this kind of thing before. We do it in expeditions, but this is bringing it down to the student level. And we're at the stage right now, the teachers have been working with advisee groups of anywhere from 5 to 12 kids to help them ask sound, responsible, legitimate questions that can be researched. That capstone work will yield products in May, beginning in May anyway. And so you will hear more about that as time goes on. It's not a do or die this year. We're learning as we go. But the conversations that staff are having among themselves are really productive explorations in something as simple or as complex as how do you get a student to ask a question that's engaging for themselves as well as legitimate research topic. So. At the same time, the 7th graders are now preparing for their first student-led conference, which is also part of the training for PBGRs. The first conference is always giving the parents a chance to meet individual teachers. The second and third conferences, so the first one in the 8th grade, are student-led. And this always meets with interesting reactions from parents, some who really value how they begin to, we hope most of them value insights they get into their students, and then there are others who feel frustrated that they're not meeting exclusively with the teachers to talk about their kid. So the ratio is in favor of the student work, student presentations, but it wouldn't surprise me if there are parents who contact individual board members because they feel that they would rather meet with teachers, which we always offer, but not on the same night. So this Friday is the second of our early dismissal days that you, as a board, have authorized us to use. They happen on the last Friday, or the last Friday before vacation, which is fascinating because most school boards and communities have said if you're going to have early dismissals, have them any time except before a vacation. But this Friday afternoon will be 2 hours of Act 51 mandatory drug and alcohol training for all of our employees, whether they're in the classroom or in the hallways or in the cafeteria. That'll be for all of Addison Northwest, and it'll be here in the auditorium. Tomorrow morning, we're hosting a 7 through 12 safety assembly. Obviously, for all students, we're going to be addressing, and I will be addressing the federal laws, state laws, board policies, and parent-student handbooks in giving direction for us to address bullying, harassment, and weapons in the building. Not really a question time. It's really just laying out concisely what we expect and why we expect certain things of kids. The next step we've asked that the teachers in morning meeting conduct conversations with the kids about the specific things that we have raised, and get those questions, any questions or comments or observations back to us or back to the student council to let us know what their concerns are and what their questions are, how we manage the whole process to keep everyone in the building community safe. That's what I have for tonight.
Just have 3 short things. One is I gave you a letter from a member of the community in regard to the most recent bond vote for your information. The second is that on February 4th, the Green Mountain Care Board set a rate increase of 9.5% for VHI health plans for the 2013-14 school year. It didn't include some federal fees, which they're estimating to be an additional 1.2%, but finally recommend that school districts budget a premium rate increase of 10.7% at this time. The board will recall that we ultimately included a 13.5% increase. That means that there's about 2.8% differential, and I would expect that some of that we might be able to use to support our new debate club in the coming year. Because this information comes as late as it does, we're not able to reflect that in the budget. The other thing is that...
Do we know what that means in terms of a dollar figure across the whole budget?
No. I'd say... I don't know. I can't say.
It's more than we're going to give the
Oh,
debate.
yeah.
Certainly, but what I'm wondering is...
That's a relief.
There's no way to change the money to reflect that. I mean, that comes really late. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah.
But it's better that it's more than less.
Agreed.
And so, and that's not a bad rate compared to, they were saying 15%.
Right.
in the beginning.
And at 1.3, wait, 2.3, higher, I mean less.
So I just want to
Not a
remind you
huge
that
figure.
a board member that I'm aware of needs to leave earlier.
Yes.
You might want to throw the
And
on it, but I have
yeah.
one more piece I want to deal with. It's not often that I get to recognize a board member in any respect, but because I received the incoming mail related to the board, I do have the opportunity to recognize Kristen Bristow. And this is through the Vermont School Boards Association 15-year service award in recognition of dedication and exemplary service to Vermont children as a board member for the Vergennes Union High School Board.
Thank you.
Anything else?
So we are going to jump down to other, because we do have a board member that needs to leave by 7:30. And the other tonight is discussion about the bond that did not pass. And what do we do from here? Citing that we definitely have some immediate emergency needs in this building. I'm just wondering where all your thoughts are at this point.
I didn't want to do it, but I almost bought and brought one of those big buckets of roof tar to just put on the table as an offering.
I don't know what our options are.
Right.
So it's hard to come to, to make any recommendations when,
Well, I think, yeah.
Well,
what are our options now? We don't have any, really.
Well,
Other
I think
than-
everything is on the table, or
Yeah.
at least it should be. And one of those options that I've been considering is ultimately we have to take care of our kids, the Vergennes Union High School kids. So maybe it's time to circle the wagons. If the stage is unsafe, maybe we don't use the stage anymore. So until we can figure out what to do. If the fields are not getting a chance to rest in the summer, then maybe we stop allowing outside non-school related things on the field. I'm not saying I like that idea, but it's an option that I think needs to be on the table.
I think one of the hardest things for me in thinking about it is that from the first vote to the second, I think that we felt like we really listened to the public. And what we heard was split it. So what did we do? We split it. And it still didn't go. I know there are a lot of things, and I appreciate when somebody comes to actually tell us, because we didn't hear a lot of these things prior to our second vote. And I think that the best thing we could possibly do is to try as best we can, again, to hear more from the public. And, part of what Don is talking about will be part of that discussion as well. Timing-wise, obviously, we've got vacation next week and the annual meeting the following week. And I guess my thought and suggestion would be to try to get word out as best we can in any possible way to say that we maybe will have this kind of discussion and listen to feedback at the annual meeting. Because there's plenty of time and there's a section there for other. It's a great time to discuss the overall plant, physical plant, money, what are our expectations for our students versus what can our taxpayers afford. So that's one thought. I mean, we do have immediate needs, but that's not something we're going to be able to, we're not going to be able to put we got to vote it again at some point, but we can't do it next week, so that's one
No, I mean,
thought.
at this point, we will miss the spring bond offering, no matter what we do.
Yeah.
So there's no point in rushing any further request to the taxpayers. Frankly, I'm not sure we're going to get the kind of, feedback that we asked for.
I agree.
Because we have repeatedly
I know.
asked for it.
I know.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in Vergennes with the police station, on whether that goes or not.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen a lot of information as to what that's going to cost the taxpayer. Only information as to why it's needed. I would be really hesitant to put something out prematurely at all, even if it's an emergency roof repair thing. I think we need to, pull back, listen to people, and let this percolate for a little bit. This letter here that, comes from some folks that, they know how taxes work and they know how things work, is a pretty pointed letter. So we're obviously not reaching all the people with the message that we're trying to. This gentleman had some very good comments, and they were very well articulated, and I wish we got more of that before. And frankly, wish we had the opportunity to explain to folks that hold the same perspective why some of what you saw wasn't a luxury in any way, shape, or form. But, short of bringing you back and showing you the power box and showing you what's under the stage, so.
So I think we should try and take the opportunity at the annual meeting, if we can get, I don't know how we get word out, front porch, back porch.
What happens to?
Newsletters,
No, but in terms of there was talk of how the kitchen wouldn't pass certain inspections. When do we actually have to meet or face that?
That's a good point.
Well, actually,
if we're not, they're going to
working
happen at
towards
some
that.
point. There's going to be a house inspection.
We usually get marching orders in the spring for things that they would expect us to correct over the summer. When we tore out all the wooden cabinetry along the, I'm directionally challenged right now. North wall. We had a couple month turnaround on that. I mean, they know we're not going to use it a lot in the summer. We ripped them out during the summer and replaced them with stainless steel shelving. We've got another entire wall that we have to rip out of wooden storage, and some islands that are wooden that we have to take care of. And they'll give us a period of time to correct it, but they're not. If it all comes at once, it's incorrectable. I mean, without funding. So, I mean, if we have, for instance, if they are serious about replacing the vent, the hood.
Yeah.
I know there's not anything in the general operating budget that would take care of that.
The other such other things as I know one place we keep getting waived on is the floor in the walk-in cooler, which is cracked and has a ramp. I don't know whether they've done us a service or a disservice by knowing that that you all were making the effort for a bond vote to have the floor, have the whole kitchen taken care of. So they've been very understanding, but there will come a point in which they're going to say, well, you don't have anything in the offing right now. We do need to issue this demand. So far, it's only been the wooden cabinets that we're able to pull out.
They're pretty pointed about the hood.
Yeah, and they were about the floor and the cooler as well. So we really don't know what will happen and when they will tell us, but they have not issued any reprimands. And we've done pretty well considering.
And do they contact you when they feel it's time to, or can you contact them just to move it up and figure out?
Sure.
We could invite them. I mean, it's roughly every year.
I mean, it might be helpful.
This is Department of Health?
The health
Yes.
inspector
Yeah.
checks twice. And I'm speaking from experience because my wife's food service manager at an elementary school. There's no advance warning. She shows up and it's, hi, I'm here to do your inspection, so.
Yeah, you don't want to be warned of their arrival.
Right.
No, but if we call them.
Oh, yeah, you can
at
always.
least-
That's what I'm saying.
At least we're
Is,
being
to give us
proactive and
a-
recognizing that we're not in compliance.
I mean, we've got the kitchen. We know it's substandard. We know that the auditorium is unsafe. And in many ways, because the fire retardant has long since worn off the curtains. And that's a terrible hazard with all sorts of Klieg lights and everything else. And we know that the fields are going to be a health hazard because we can't control their hardness and we can't get them to grow correctly. But what's really going to cause havoc in an educational institution, I still have this kind of a nightmare about going into Wendy Cuson's office and seeing plastic sheeting over the servers and the water running off the plastic sheeting just inches from the servers, and knowing what would happen to our educational program if that water ever got into the server. Now, servers are replaceable. I'm sure we have insurance to some extent, but the downtime that would cause our educational
The whole district.
inner workings for the whole district would be, it'd be a disaster, the first water. No pun intended. Yes, it is. But the, you know, it's, I don't know how we can assure that that's not going to happen without real roofing done. I mean, we've patched it together, and we can continue to patch it together, and it's kind of it's a fool's errand in some ways, but you know, we do what we need to do to keep the school open for kids and to keep the school open for learning. It looks like $1 million when you look around the library, but you go up into Steve's room when it's pouring water through his closet, and it's a different story. It doesn't look nice like it does here in the library when the water's pouring all over your feet, you know. And I, you know, I just want people to remember that these aren't very little of this was pie in the sky stuff. I mean, the auditorium is a hazard. There's no doubt for the kids on stage, not for the adults watching, for the kids on stage. And it's a kid issue. Yeah, it's not comfortable in the auditorium. Yeah.
Well, what concerns me is the last round of concerts they did in December. I had Karen Jordan relate to me about, I think it was a middle school student, doesn't matter what grade. Anyway, a student who was so overcome by the heat on the riser that she almost fainted and fell off the riser. Thank God Karen was watching, got her off the riser, got her hydrated, things like that. If it's going to continue to be that bad, then I don't know as a board member if I can support continued use of it.
I just wanted to share a few comments that I've heard around where people have been, that I've talked to, have said, if I understood how dire it was, I would have voted yes. Now, I thought we did a good job of communicating how dire it was, but I just would urge you to try again. I don't know what the timing is, but I agree with what Ed just said. I don't see it as pie in the sky. I see it as the future of our school and our students and our community. And I just feel really strongly that we just got to try again.
Well, we also have the, who knows, there's 30 days if anyone petitions to revote it, if they're not happy with the outcome. That's always a possibility, but. So I don't know what we do.
Start with the annual meeting.
Okay, good idea.
We look at other ways to solicit feedback.
Okay. All right, move on to Kathy. Do you have a report for us?
So I have a financial report as of today, includes the invoices that we will be approving shortly. So this is the general fund. This is the same as this is our budget. Just a reminder, the first column is our budget, and we have second column is our actual, and then column for encumbrances, and then the amount remaining and the percent remaining. And then some expenses like teacher salaries and teachers' benefits are only from September through now. Anything over last summer would be on last year's numbers. And then other expenses are from July 1 until now, so it sort of is a disparate comparison when we're looking at how much is remaining. And I did a quick scan of this before I came, and there's just really nothing, I don't want to say nothing out of the ordinary. A lot of it is as expected. Let's see, everything, we have all of our different departments. I know, just looking at, I mean, there are some items that are over budget already, and I will look into some of those items. I know, two areas that we always look at are special ed, and that is on page 6. And then we'll take a look at maintenance in a second. So page 6, special education. And we'll just go right to it. Tuition, we're already over budget $260,000. And that's just, one of those items that we try to predict as best that we can and hope for the best. We will be able to receive a reimbursement for those students that we, for all students, about 56%, but for the students that we spend $50,000 and over, we receive 90% of that excess back. So I would expect that our special ed revenues may be higher than projected. I'm looking at student transportation. We did have some extra money in the IDEA B grant that we administer at the central office, so we did increase the transportation line for that. The high school is the only school that has student transportation, so we will be reducing that line. At the end of the year, I will do an analysis of to see if it's best to include that for the extraordinary reimbursement to get 90% back, or if it's best to pay for it with that grant. So I will be doing that analysis at year end. And then looking at operations and maintenance, which starts on the bottom of page 9 and then goes to page 10. That's another area that we try to budget for, but it is unpredictable as to what the building will need. So we are over budget in building repairs. Looking at the line there for encumbrances, I believe we have some doors that we're planning to buy. And then coming down a few lines, technical services, we have our software update for our heating system that is in there, that causing that to go over budget.
Isn't that something we budgeted for in the current year?
We budgeted for some software in the current year, but we do have some in the prior year. Some controls update also is in there.
So just so I can get an idea of where we're at in the year, what percentage of the year is remaining, just on a straight line? So like 30%? 30%?
Page 11, about halfway down.
Yeah, 30%.
Yeah, 29.6.
So March, April, May, June. And then just looking, I'm in the middle of page 11 for totals for the general fund. So in the middle there, our budget, $8,963,000. We've spent $6,262,000. Encumbered almost $40,000. So the amount remaining is $2,661,000, and you can see there, it's almost 30% is the amount remaining.
And so how much of the year has elapsed?
Time-wise.
Yeah.
Time-wise.
Like if
well,
we're 50% through, we should be 50% through.
Well, so for teachers' salary and benefits, it's September, October, November, December, January, so almost half of the years through for teacher salaries and benefits. For the rest of it, we only have 4 months left, March, April, May, and June.
So we're 2/3.
Yes.
So
For those expenses. Although the teacher salaries are the higher.
So our burn rate's a little hot right now.
Yeah.
We're bleeding fuel oil, by the way. It's 1 week, one of the cold weeks, we had to have one full delivery just to get us through the week. So that's incredible. So we've been seeing fuel oil almost every 10 days. Is that right, Kathy? Something like that?
Yeah, I don't know. We only have $42,000 left in our budget for fuel oil. I would imagine that that roof probably isn't helping our heat retention matters any.
I think you said 1 week we went through $4,000 worth of fuel.
Wow. I mean, the architect did say that we had no insulation that was effective in that roof, so I'm sure the heat's just going right off the top, so. Any questions?
Any questions for Kathy? All right.
All right, great, thank you.
Greg, do you have anything to add for the Career Center?
No.
Okay.
I'll have more after the meeting on Thursday.
Okay. GRN report's pretty slim, just because the last report I got was like 2 days or 3 days after our last meeting, and things changed so quickly. The big thing that's come out of the Senate, they've approved S14, and it moved on to the House, and that talks about mandatory agency fee within our contract. So that's now in the House, and we'll see where they take that.
I did contact both of my senators and voice my opposition. I got responses from both of them. One voted for it, one voted against it.
Yeah, I did the same.
And I will be contacting my representatives, and Warren Van Wyck is our new replacement for Greg Clark.
What was interesting is that one of the representatives voted against it and then voted for it after in a second vote. So her explanation wasn't very clear. So
no, it wasn't.
It seems like she may be working on something. I don't know.
Senator Bray, I've still got to return his call, but Senator Bray wants to speak to board members about ideas, because he's already moved on to Plan B and Plan C, where he's going to work with his House brothers and sisters to try to come up with some kind of a quid pro quo type thing, where since they're bent on taking that away from us as a negotiating point, what are you going to give us? So I will be returning his call.
Good.
It's a tremendous amount of money that the NEA will get. So, it's what, $350,000?
I saw $500,000 somewhere. Anyway, keep your eyes open for other alerts from the from VSBA. Business matters. I need a motion to approve bills in the amount of
$497,268.38.
And a second.
Second.
Any questions?
Everybody needs to remember to sign and date.
Thank you, Lori. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. No policy matters? Personnel?
We do have one personnel matter. I received a letter, I'll read you the letter. Dear Tom, I've been working in or with our schools since 1974. While it didn't start for me as a lifelong plan, working with kids has proven to be great and noble work. In some ways, over these 4 decades, we have traveled a great distance. In others, it feels like we have merely circled around the target. Although I do believe that in completing each circle, we pass the start better informed, and I like to believe a bit wiser. While I am still not always satisfied with how I've done my work, I am, after all, still learning. I am pleased with what, working with great people, we have accomplished together. As our friend in Ripton has indicated to many audiences, there are other roads and miles to go. I've reached a benchmark age and know that it is time for my next step. I have traveled well in education, but there is still more to see. I would like to have more control over my time and spend more of it with those closest to me. That's how I define retirement. I think it was the walrus who pointed out that it was time. By then, though, there was no one left to listen. I choose not to be an oyster. We are in the midst of great work at VUHS, and I am proud to have been part of it. The folks I work with get it and will carry it forward, but as of the end of this school year, I will not seek another contract. Thanks to you and the board, the staff at VUHS, and of course my colleagues in the middle school for being willing to walk along a different path to make things better for kids, to build a stronger society. Respectfully, Peter Reynolds. My recommendation to the board is that we accept Peter's resignation and wish him well in his retirement.
I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
Wait a minute, I was just in here.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Planning for the annual and budget informational meeting. Do we have, what do you want to do? We talked about, at least for our budget part, is to really just kind of answer questions, explain what the budget changes are, maybe, and also, I think the history, the last 5-year history would be good to bring up, but otherwise open it to questions. As we know from history, we don't tend to get very many people, so.
Do we want to do something like Mark did?
We can.
Some of those slides I found very informational.
We can.
I don't know if that's something that we want to, spend 10 minutes on and then open to, speak to it and then questions.
Some of those materials, I think, especially the ones that Ed usually talks to about our student population and makeup, are in the annual report, so we can refer to that. I also put a graph in there about our last 4 years, I think it was, of budget proposals. So some of that information is already in
Well,
the annual
and we
report.
could probably just put it on an overhead or.
Yep.
It's just one more medium.
Tax rates in there, and do average. I mean, Mark did average increase, and we could do that too.
Doesn't the chairman of the board usually do?
Yes.
Pretty much. You want to have, leave some time for the bond
Right.
piece.
Would you like some help? I'd be glad to help.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just get together and put a lot of that.
Put that together.
Put that together. And we can do, that's, I've done presentations before, we've done it without presentations, you get, to spend the time to put a long presentation together
Right.
doesn't make any sense to me at all.
I
But we'll work on that.
envisioned, 3 or 4
Yeah,
slides.
no,
kinda
I
like
think
what
that,
Mark
I think
had.
that makes sense,
could
because
do
then
that.
people can see it there, even though they have it in the annual report, it'd be great. So we'll do that. And I'll get in touch with you and we'll get together.
Okay.
If you
Okay,
wanna come, that'd be
sure,
great.
that'd be great.
Sounds
I've
great.
always been told also that informational meetings would be well attended if we offered food.
Okay, you're on the food.
I'll bring some brownies.
You're on the food committee.
Okay.
Okay.
What's that?
We'll put it out in the sign out there, Krispy and brownies.
And I hate to say it, but I think it's the same night as the first playoff game, so
Yeah,
I
okay.
don't think anybody
Yeah.
will be coming
Oh,
here.
jeez.
That is if they
Including
make
Kathy.
the play.
What? Including
Kathy.
Kathy, that's right.
Right. I guess we better talk a lot ahead of
Yeah,
time.
I'll help you out.
Will it be
as-
here?
Yes, it will be here.
You can go back and forth.
So anybody that would be coming here is the public would probably be going.
What time
Just
is
go
it?
at halftime,
Okay.
into the gym.
What time is the game?
I believe it would be at 7.
7.
Half an hour.
Yeah. We'll get you out of here by 7. So anyway, that meeting is next Tuesday, the 26th, not next Tuesday, the week after. The 26th at 6:30. And the next regular meeting is March 11. And the next Addison Northwest meeting is March 27. And we do have a need for a very brief executive session for personnel matters. If I could have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Tom, we did say last time that we would, that we would move.